Today, we are digging into what is, without a doubt, one of the most important moments in all of human history. Seriously, it's a turning point that didn't just change how we found food. It completely reshaped our societies, our cultures, our very DNA. This is the story of the Neolithic Revolution.
So, let me just start by asking you a question. What do you think was the single biggest idea in all of human history? I mean, you could say fire, or the wheel, maybe even the internet, and those are all great answers. But the idea we're going to talk about today, well, it just might be the one that made all the others possible. It's the moment we stopped chasing our food and started growing it ourselves. To really wrap your head around how massive this change was, you first have to understand what life was like for millions, and I do mean millions of years before any of this happened.
Just let that number sink in for a minute. For almost 2 million years, the entire human experience for every single person on this planet was defined by one thing. Where is the next meal coming from? Life was a constant search, a constant hunt. You were always on the move.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the hunter-gatherer. Their life is completely at the mercy of nature, following the animals, living in caves or temporary shelters. But on the right, you have a totally new kind of human, the farmer. This person isn't just surviving, they're taking control. They're creating their own food supply, which means they can build permanent homes and create the world's very first villages. Now, this massive shift didn't happen in a flash, but its impact was so total, so all-encompassing, that we don't just call it an age, we call it a revolution. Welcome to the Neolithic period, the new Stone Age.
And we actually have a name for this, thanks to a historian named V. Gordon Childe. He called it the Neolithic Revolution. And that word, revolution, is just perfect, because it wasn't just about finding a new way to get food. It was a complete and total overhaul of what it meant to be human.
So, you might be wondering, how did this even happen? Well, it wasn't just one single invention. This whole new world was really built on 4 huge interconnected ideas. 4 pillars that, when you put them all together, created the basic recipe for civilization as we know it.
Okay, so here are the 4 pillars we're going to break down. First, the start of farming itself. Second, the beginning of settled life in villages. Third, a major tech upgrade with polished stone tools. And finally, the invention of pottery. Let's see how they all lock together.
Pillar number 1, and it is the absolute game changer, agriculture. This is the moment we went from just taking whatever nature gave us to actively shaping nature for ourselves. Instead of just hoping to find some wild grain, we figured out how to plant it, care for it, and harvest it. And this created something humanity had never really had before, a reliable food supply. And what's really cool is that this wasn't some one-size-fits-all thing. It happened differently all over the world. In the Indian subcontinent, for example, people in the northwest were farming wheat and barley. But in the central regions, it was all about rice. And down south, they cultivated hardy millets like ragi.
And of course, this leads directly into our second pillar. I mean, you can't just plant a field of crops and then wander off for a few months, right? You have to stick around. You have to tend to them. Farming basically changed people to the land, and that necessity is what gave birth to the very first permanent villages and houses. It was the end of the nomadic road.
Okay, pillar number 3 is all about the tech. It's still the Stone Age, yeah, but the technology got a huge level up. Instead of just chipping away at rocks to make tools, people in the Neolithic period learned how to grind and polish them. This made tools that were way sharper, much more durable, and just perfect for the new main job on everyone's to-do list: clearing forests to make space for farms.
And this right here is the perfect example. The iconic tool of this era wasn't a spear for hunting a mammoth. It was the polished stone axe, also known as a celt. This was the tool that literally reshaped the face of the earth, cutting down trees to make way for fields and villages.
And that brings us to our 4th and final pillar, pottery. This was an invention that solved a brand new problem, a problem hunter-gatherers never really had. What do you do with all the extra food? Farming creates a surplus of grain, and you need a way to store it, to protect it from rain and pests. Clay pots were the genius solution.
So this all sounds like a great story, right? A neat little package. But how on earth do we actually know any of this? This all happened thousands and thousands of years before anyone was writing things down. Well, the proof is literally buried right under our feet.
You could say it like this. Archaeologists found the receipts.
They have excavated ancient sites all over the world that give us this incredible, perfectly preserved snapshot of what this revolutionary new lifestyle was actually like.
And we can actually see this evidence laid out right here. Let's just look at a few of these incredible sites from the Indian subcontinent. Take Mirgarh. Here, archaeologists found the earliest evidence of farming in the region. That's pillar number 1. Right alongside mud brick houses, which is pillar number 2. It's all there. Then you go to a place like Burzaham, and you find people were living in these amazing pit dwellings, dug into the earth to stay warm. And even more amazing, they were burying their dogs with them, which tells us so much about how our relationship with animals was changing. Then you have Koldiwa, which gives us some of the earliest evidence for rice farming anywhere on the planet. And in Chirand, they found a treasure trove of tools made from bone and antlers. Each of these sites is like a piece of a giant puzzle, and when you put them together, you get this incredibly clear picture of this whole new way of life.
So you see the evidence is there, but here's the most important takeaway, the really big idea here. The Neolithic Revolution was about so much more than just food and tools. It fundamentally remade human society from the ground up, and we are still living with the consequences today.
Think about it. For the very first time in history, we had a surplus of food. That meant not everybody had to be a farmer. This is where we get the first division of labor, the first full-time specialists like potters or weavers. And that's not all. The idea of personal property was basically invented. I mean, that's my land, I cleared it, those are my crops. And finally, even our ideas about God changed. Suddenly, we were completely dependent on the sun, the rain, the seasons, so we started worshiping them with a big focus on fertility.
So yeah, this revolution set humanity on the path to the modern world, no question about it. But it's worth asking, did all this progress come with a price?
This quote, I think, just hits the nail on the head. It really gets to the deep psychological shift that happened. This idea of mine versus yours, in a way that just didn't really exist for hunter-gatherers. It became a central part of being human. And you can draw a straight line from that idea to wealth, to social class, and to conflict.
Which kind of leads us to this final question. The Neolithic Revolution, it gave us food security, it gave us permanent homes, it gave us art and specialization, but it also gave us property disputes, new diseases from living so close together, and social hierarchies. So did it actually solve our oldest human problems, or did it just trade the simple, shared problem of survival for the much more complex and divisive problems of civilization? Something to think about.